All right, here we go, guys. F&P committee agenda. Welcome. It's Wednesday, November 6th. It's really way later. It's 6:32. Welcome. Call to order. Sean McAllister present.
Mike Milkey here.
Dan Stevens present.
Anybody else? We know you're here.
Yeah.
We're all good? Okay. A motion from the minutes from the previous meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Any public input limited to 3 minutes per individual? First call, second call, third call. Nobody wants to say anything. All right, well, that's good. That part's closed. Item number 4, 2024 General Fund Financials. Sabrina.
All right, thank you. So in your packets tonight, starting on page 1 is the balance sheet for the general fund. If I can draw your attention back to page 6, we will take a look at total revenues year to date. So again, this report goes through September 30th of 2024. We do have 6.24% remaining to hit our budgeted revenues. Couple things to note, we will still receive, we have some funds remaining for the shared revenue from the state. We will still receive that. So there's still some payments coming through. I have no doubt that we will actually surpass our total revenues for the year. Then if you go to page 18, that will give us our total expenses in the general fund. Total expenses year to date. Sorry, not year to date, year to September 30th of 2024 is $8,256,072.17. We do have 28.9% remaining of our total budgeted expenditures. Last year at this time, so 9/30 of 2023, we were at 30.4. So trending a little lower than what we had remaining at the end of September in 2023, but I still feel that will come out at the end of the year, likely with a surplus.
Thank you. Any questions from the group?
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike to approve and place on file the 2020 general fund financials. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, Omni Center financials.
Thank you. So next in your packet, starting on page 19, is the balance sheet for the Omni Center. Pages 19 through 21 show the balance sheet. Then starting on page 22 is the budget report for the Omni Center. If you take a look, the total revenues through September 30th is $626,560.73. Remaining would be $92,679.27. We got our final room tax number in for the third quarter. So I will be doing a journal entry likely in the next couple of days for $51,338.60, plus an additional $3,625, which will get us a lot closer to our total budgeted revenues for the Omni Center. And we will also have the next 3 months of ice time, and then we'll have the fourth quarter for a room tax. So very confident that we will exceed our budgeted revenues. Then if you take a look at page 24 for our total budgeted expenses, through September 30th of 2024, we have 21.26% remaining for expenses. As of September 30th of 2023, we were at 12.65. So we're actually trending ahead of where we were at last year.
Awesome. Thank you. Questions?
Or expenses that have paid or that we're thinking we're better.
I think we will do better this year than we did last year.
I'll move to approve the 2024 Omni Center financials and place on file.
Motion by Mike, second by Dan to approve the 2024 Omni Center financials and place on file. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6, Gunderson Health Systems parking ramp.
Thank you. Next in your packet, starting on, actually only on page 25, is the 2024 parking ramp costs through the third quarter. This is just a standard report that's issued to us from Gunderson. Well, actually, I think it's Amplify Health now. They issue this to us on a quarterly basis. We pay $1,250 quarterly to them to help with maintenance costs. So this is just them showing what they actually paid for maintenance and showing that, we paid that $1,250. The parking ramp agreement goes through 2028. So we'll be continuing to take a look at this as we get closer to the end of the agreement and paying off the debt for the parking ramp as well.
Thank you. Do you need a motion on this too?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
All right, I'll move to approve the Gunderson Health Systems parking ramp third quarter 2024 operating costs.
Motion by Mike, second by Dan to approve the Gunderson Health System parking ramp third quarter financial or third quarter operating costs. Any further discussion? Dan?
Sabrina, does, after this expires in 2028, I assume that our expenditures of the $1,250 per quarter, will that continue or will that cease at the same?
Great question. So we have to take a closer look at the agreement, but my understanding is when the agreement ends that we own the ramp and we would have the opportunity to sell it to Gunderson. And then at that point, we would no longer have the operating costs if that were to be what happens. But right now we do put tax levy into this fund. It's fund 670 in your budget books that, we have that fund meeting tomorrow. So we do put money into the Gunderson parking ramp every year to pay the debt off.
Sell the ramp at a future date, what's the approximate value of it?
I do not know that. And that would be, I think the agreement, there's a clause in there that Gunderson has first dibs on the purchase.
Cool. Motion on the floor is to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 7. Is that you too?
Are you,
Rick?
I didn't know if Joe was coming or not, but
He's not.
okay.
Through a number of reasons, he's not able to be here, so.
Okay, I can talk a little bit about it and Rick and maybe even Amy can add some to this, but there's been, it's been quite a process, evaluating an ERP system. There were many, many hours put in by many staff, including myself, Amy, Rick. We have a great team, Amanda, Joe, everyone on the team has put a lot of hours into first writing the proposal. So we started writing the proposal and then we sent it out. We had 4 responses come back. Then we evaluated all of those responses. Then we had all-day interviews. Sorry, we had 5 responses. We interviewed 4 out of the 5. Where we had like 8 hours of interviews where we got to see the financial suite, we got to see the HR suite, the community development suite, and so forth for all of these different programs. We decided through that evaluation, both on price and on features, to go with BS&A, which is a company out of Michigan. I was fortunate enough to get to go to their end user training a couple weeks ago now in Milwaukee. everyone that I talk to there says they love BSNA. They love the software, that they call them with any questions and they get a response within like 10 to 15 minutes if they don't hear from someone right away. That's been one thing that has been kind of a struggle since I've come here at the city, is just getting support through our current software. And our current software is dated. It's an on-prem. We will be going to the cloud. So that means you'll be able to easily be able to use the system outside of being here at City Hall. In regards to costs, we didn't put that in here because we're still working through the costs. But we are hoping that the council will consider moving this forward either to next week when we will have more, the committee would move this forward to council next week, where we would have more idea on final cost. We did budget $350,000 using some ARPA dollars, as well as the water utility would pay a portion of this for utility billing side. It will be under budget, but we just don't know the final cost at this time. So we didn't put a final figure in here. And I don't know if Amy or Rick want to add anything more to that.
I don't have a lot to add other than what Sabrina indicated was there was a lot of work put into this. The review of the ones that we decided to interview was extensive. And this is something that is going to make operations at the city easier for staff. It's going to make things more streamlined. And so it's definitely a good move. It's a move in the right direction. And yes, it will be coming in under what was budgeted. Again, we just don't know the details of it yet. I believe we have a meeting tomorrow to go over some of the terms of the contract as well.
Is it all departments? Every department like has a use?
It's pretty essentially, it's going to touch every part of the city. Yes. Correct.
And the only other thing that I would add that I didn't say was, this is actually going to be better for our citizens too, because there'll be an online payment portal where you'll be able to pay for your dog license, cat license, hopefully soon, pay for your taxes, everything in one place, where right now we don't really have that feature. You can pay your water bill online, but that's about it here at the city. So we're trying to make it better for the end user, and then also for myself and my staff and Amy and her staff and everybody else here at the city.
So when I read the letter here, I didn't really understand exactly what the employee resource planning software was. So you mentioned some of the things that it does, but are there other things that, like, what else does it do to benefit the city? It's employee resource. I assume it's for employees to use, but also our citizen end users, or what are we getting for our money, I guess,
Yeah.
and why do we
So
need it?
it is for employees. It won't be, the citizen piece will be the payment piece on the citizen end. But employees will be able to use it. If Amy wants to talk a little bit about the employee side.
From the human resources standpoint, right now we use NeoGov for all of our applicants that apply for positions with the city. So right now, our current software doesn't integrate with what we have now. So that's a manual entry anytime we have new hires and all of that. So this is going to integrate with NeoGov, and it's going to streamline that process, eliminate a lot of double entries and things like that. But for the employee, what that means is there's also a self-service portal, so they can go in their benefit elections, and it makes it a lot more electronic, where we are doing paper right now for all of those things, and it's a lot of that is manual entry. And so it makes it a lot more streamlined for the employee side of things, and also operationally for our departments as well. Just again, it is our HRIS system is what we would call it. Where we're keeping track of all that employee data, and now we'll be able to streamline, have things back and forth that will make it a lot easier.
How antiquated is the existing software?
We do not have a
5 years or 20 years?
Oh.
Or?
I believe 2008. The other thing on the citizen side is you'll be able to apply for some permits online through their community development portal.
Great. Cool. Good stuff to know.
Diane, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Is there any kind of monthly maintenance fees Is that,
Yeah, great question. So if we do come under, depending on how much we come under budget in the first year, we would use any additional funds to pay for the yearly maintenance. It's going to be around 72,000 a year. Right now, with our current software, we pay, I think 68 is where we're currently at. But if we would have gone to their cloud version, it would have been 98,000, I believe. Don't quote me exact figures. But this was actually slightly cheaper than our current software.
and follow up to that, is there any other kind of fees or anything for implementing?
That's going to be included in the full price. Yeah, that will be under budget. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Diane, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So Sabrina, this replaces Tyler, correct?
Yeah, so right now we use, this will replace a couple different softwares. So right now we use Tyler version 9 and version 10. So we will be in one software, which will be lovely. And then it will also, the other piece of this that I didn't mention a lot of was Andrew's technology will replace our Time Clock Plus that we currently use. And Andrew's technology fully integrates with BSNA. We've done many demos with lots of staff on that as well.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Do you need a motion on this one too to? move
Yeah, that would
forward?
be helpful.
Probably not non-consent.
Yeah, I can put it
next.
on non-consent.
Okay.
There's a lot of questions, so, all right, I'll make a motion that we proceed with the enterprise resource planning software. I guess that will move this forward to
Yeah.
get the final price and investigate moving that forward. That's a really bad motion. Let me rephrase that. I will make a motion to direct staff to proceed with investigating and pricing out the enterprise resource planning software.
Is that better? Sabrina's thinking.
I'll let Rick go.
That help?
What we are looking for tonight is being able to move forward with BSNA and Andrews. We can't do anything more with them until we get approval to move forward with them. We know that the final price for both those products are going to come in under our budget. So what we would be asking for tonight is that we be given approval to move forward with BSNA and Andrews. And then we can finalize whatever else we need to do, knowing that it's going to be under budget. If you want to put on there, making sure that it does not go over the $350,000 out, and that's certainly something you can add to it as well. But we would be looking for approval to move forward with the BSNA and Andrews.
All right, so I will rephrase again. I will make a motion to proceed with the request for BS&A to implement the enterprise resource planning software. Not
And
to
Andrew's
exceed-
technology.
And what?
And Andrew's technology.
And Andrew's technology not to exceed 350,000.
Second.
Okay.
All right, and then I do have a follow-up question.
Sure. Motion by Dan, second by Mike to move forward with the and Andrew's enterprise resource planning software as outlined by Sabrina and Rick and Amy, not to exceed 350,000. Discussion.
So we normally have like a bidding process and we know what the final number is on several different vendors. It seems that we're working differently in this time, kind of decided on the vendor. We know about what they're going to ask for, but are we comfortable with that? Is that just kind of, this is the vendor we want, we're going to do that, and no other companies would be considered at that time?
We did evaluate all 5 of the companies and their pricing. We could prepare that and bring that forward if you would like, but they're all different. So for example, one of the companies that we interviewed was Oracle, which is a huge system, and they were more expensive in some areas, but then they didn't have a utility billing module, so they didn't really compare. Then we evaluated a company called the Clarion, which had their main costs. And then if we would have selected them, we would have been able to pick a timekeeping system. So it was really hard to compare like just total price. But we could definitely bring that forward if you would like. It's just hard to really do a true comparison for.
Yeah, I
cost.
mean, I guess I understand the dilemma. It's just that from a transparency point of view, it looks like that there's like this one company and that's it. And this is really the first time that this was brought before us. And I'm inclined to support staff, and I trust if you say that this has the features that we need, the price is comparable, and the service is excellent. I'm inclined to support that, but it's where I think it's problematic is, at least from council's point of view, we're not looking at anything else and there's no other choice. And that could be a problem. So I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but like, I want to support staff. I want to get you guys what you need to do your job. But, you know, if a constituent were to come up and looks like there's some sort of, you know, I know you guys did your due diligence, but it could have the appearance of otherwise. And transparency in Alaska city government is a virtue I think we should uphold.
Yeah, we can, I can work with Joe and have him prepare kind of a cost summary if that is what you would like. And I can have
And
that.
talk about the benefits too, like why we think that this is okay, so. And a lot of that was not apparent in the letter. I mean, it just was like, yep, this is the best company, let's do that one. And like, while I believe you, I'd like to have a little bit more detail presented.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, as far as when we're purchasing this, is this a budget item for 2024? So we're purchasing this in 2024?
Yeah, so we actually, shortly after I started here, I was like, this is pure chaos with our current system, with multiple systems. And I had brought this forward in the past, back when we were talking ARPA dollars. So this is money that's been budgeted for already. So it's not a cost for 2024. It'll be a cost in 2025, but we already have the budgeted dollars.
Okay.
Great question.
And I mean, honestly, with you vetting it, the things that I'm reading about with the, only lost 4 customers in 37 years, glowing reviews, things like that. I mean, I'm definitely wanting to support this. I was just kind of curious about, the cost and everything. And with it being under budget, with it being 4,000 more than we pay right now, and if we were to switch companies, that would be roughly 20,000 more. So I guess I totally understand where you're coming from with this.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Amy, item number 8, human resource update.
Good evening.
Good
So
evening.
our recruitment update. So for the month of October, the city was fully staffed. You can see we've got 3 regular full-time positions that were filled, police sergeant, firefighter, EMT, and police officer. And then we had 3 of our regular part-time positions filled as well, bringing the city to full staffing levels. Again, things quickly change. We do have a change for November already that you'll see next month, but otherwise staffing levels are otherwise good. Other things that Human Resources has been working on, we've just completed our open enrollment season and then also preparing for our Staff Success Day later November, actually next week, Monday.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions?
So Amy, I see that we're kind of sensitive to how many police officers we have, and I see that we added a new person, but can you maybe just briefly explain when we add somebody, they go through, it's field training, so they're not on their own yet, is that correct? And
Correct. The hire that we had, Lingo Vu, this month in October or previous month in October, he came to the city fully certified. So he had gone through the academy already and now is in the field training officer program. So again, typically we get them where they are not certified and they have to go through that law enforcement academy. Fortunately for the city, Lingo is certified and was able to start that field training officer program right away.
so will he be able to be a fully functioning sworn officer right away?
Yes, they are all fully functioning sworn officers regardless, but in this case, again, he
Like
doesn't.
riding along with somebody else or?
Correct. He doesn't have to go through the 4.5 months of the academy. He can go right into the training program. And I mean, they do have a probationary period. I want to say it's a year and 18 weeks or something like that. So there's still a learning curve and a process to get him fully operational.
Thank you. And then 9A through E.
Rick, did you want to introduce these first?
I'll just start out with, so the next couple of policies that are on the agenda, the items, sorry, I have to get back to the. So as everybody may recall, earlier this year, there was a group formed, it's called the Benefit Work Group. And that was something that was kind of put in place to review our benefit policies. There's technically 10 policies in that section of our policies and procedures manual, for lack of a better word. So before you tonight, our policies 7.1 through 7.4. So we wanted to start bringing these policies forward with the proposed changes. So what happened was this group was put together. There was an individual from each department across the city that got together on a monthly basis. We had conversations about each of these policies, discussed potential changes, recommendations for changes. Once that group had gone through them and vetted them, then they were sent out to department heads and our employee engagement team for further review to provide input. And then the benefit work group looked at that input and then decided whether or not to make any tweaks or changes to it based on that further input. So what you have before you tonight in policies 7.1, 2, 3, and 4 is the recommendation from this benefit work group in regards to changes to our policies. Amy's going to go through and just kind of highlight what some of the recommended changes are going to be. I should mention the remaining policies will be coming forward in the December meeting cycle. So you'll be seeing those next month before they go to council.
So with these policies, I wouldn't describe them as any major or substantial changes. Most of these are just clarifications and things that just making the process a little more clear or transparent. So starting with the leave of absence policy, that is clarifying that an employee is not eligible for holiday pay if they are on a leave of absence on the workday immediately prior and after the holiday. With the FMLA policy, a couple of areas, again, it may look like a lot of, but really we were just updating the format and such. But for this one, the major change was that if an employee is on FMLA, they can choose to substitute disability payments to reduce their accrued leave. It is not required. And that is something that the city has practiced. Again, with these type of policies, we are bound by Wisconsin and federal law. And so we're going to follow that. And so this is just making this policy compliant with that. And then also clarified if an employee is returning from FMLA early and it's for their own serious health condition, they do need to provide the proper healthcare provider authorization. Again, something we're already doing. For the military leave, there we just inserted the word human resources basically. And again, very important that employees are notifying their supervisor, but that also human resources involved because we also administer the benefits and help the employee through that process and provide all of those forms and notices in that regard. And then the last one was the jury duty subpoenas and civil leave. Again, this is another one that was basically just clarifying that the employee can keep the mileage reimbursement for such service or appearance. And then the employee turns over to finance any fees paid to them with the exception of that mileage and meal reimbursement fees. It also includes our regular part-time staff.
Cool. Questions? You.
So a lot of this just looked like it was cleaning up the language, like, you know, rather than you, it's employee or, you know, things of that nature. But as I read through the whole thing, and I feel like I'm really kind of getting into the weeds, but I read this and I didn't know what it meant, so I'm going to ask it now. With regards to jury duty, where it has essentially if somebody is not jury duty, but if they have to, if they get summoned to testify for a court, if it's within the scope of something happening in the city of Onalaska, then they'll be compensated for it, but not if it's not related to the city of Onalaska, which makes sense. So what I was wondering is if somebody sees something while in the course of their work, so say somebody from Public Works is driving a truck somewhere and they see an accident and they have to testify, is that considered in the scope of Onalaska? Would we pay them, or would they have to take PTO time? This really isn't that important, but it's the weird stuff that pop up and makes us redo the policy later. So I was just curious.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And like with all of our policies, whatever we have those, we'll treat them case by case. I would imagine would, refer to our city administrator, our city attorney. I mean, are they witnessing something that's happening with another city employee, or is it a civilian? Is it the course of their job? I mean, there's a lot of different questions I think we would have to know before we could answer that infinitely.
Yeah, and I would say as a general proposition, if it's something that's related to their work, so for example, if their Public Works is out doing something and they notice that, maybe someone chopped a pipe and then we had to go fix it and we want to recover the costs and someone got subpoenaed, that would be something that we would pay them for. If they saw a car accident that was not related to the work that they were doing, that may be a different situation. On the other hand, though, in that scenario, that individual would talk with the supervisor, get some direction on how we would handle that situation. But generally speaking, unless it's directly related to their employment or what they're doing on behalf of the city, generally speaking, it may not be covered.
And there's a right or wrong
Mhm.
answer.
Yep.
I don't
Mhm.
know.
Oh, good question.
All right. Do you want to do E2 or keep that separate or?
That one's not a benefit policy, so we'll do that one separately,
Okay.
if that's okay with the group. So,
You're the boss. Yeah. So, okay. So do you want a motion on A through D then?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the policy updates and an omnibus motion for policy 7.01 leave of absence, policy 7.02 Family Medical Leave Act, policy 7.03 military leave, and policy 7.04 jury duty subpoenas and civil leave.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike to approve the
You have to
policy.
read the whole stuff again.
Yeah, thank you. Approve policy updates to 7.01, 7.02, 7.03, and 7.04 as outlined by Amy. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. E.
This one I will take. So this was a policy that we did not have in existence prior to recently. So this discussion came up after the return of the remains of that Sergeant Jack Holfeld. And the city was requested to do an escort for the remains to be taken from Onalaska to its final resting place in La Crosse. So after that, Alder Nod did approach and just asked if we had anything, and if we didn't, do we want to do something in that respect? So that's how this got started. So then a group of us got together, had some discussions. I believe it was police and fire, legal, financial. There were just a number of us got together and had a conversation. This is what came out of that conversation. We kind of talked through what the nuances should be. We didn't want to get too specific on things, but yet we also wanted to cover things. So what you see before you is basically the policy that we're bringing forward, that in the event that the city of Onalaska is requested, that there be some form of vehicle use in a escort of remains in the situation. This is how we would handle it. Again, it keeps it pretty general, but at least it gives us some parameters on how to operate. So that's how this came forward. And so this is here before you to determine whether or not this is something that the city wants to move forward with.
Is it insurance based ever? Is that part of the consideration, like what the vehicle is used for? Is that why, or is it just because there was
More
no-
resource and time for
Exactly.
employees.
Yep,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
You know, whether it be one or two vehicles or 4 vehicles, keeping that parameter so we know what we're looking at when the request comes up.
Okay.
So I recall the discussion on this when it came up, and like there was, I think, discussion of we were looking at sending people potentially down to Milwaukee, and like that's going to take a lot of time and it's a whole day. So this looks like it's restricted to La Crosse County. I almost think that may be a little bit too finite. So if we wanted to something happened terrible in Sparta, I mean, that's still kind of our community. I think maybe we should amend it outside the county and do like a 50 miles or do like a radius. At some point, it's too long to have the officer out. We're not part of the same media market, you know, it's at some point, it's kind of not our community anymore, but I don't know that we should just restrict it to LaCrosse County. I mean, you know, La Crescent is part of our general area, even though it's not even the same state. If they had an officer fall, I would feel perfectly fine letting us, you know, put a squad car for the escort. So I like the policy in general. I just think that we should tweak it.
Certainly. And I will say there's, no urgency with this, at least we hope there is no urgency with this. So certainly if there are some recommendations or suggestions, we can always take it back and rebring it back. Because I agree with you. I think that's great, and kind of looking at what would a 50 mile or a 60 mile, what would that look like? What areas would that cover to make sure it covers the areas? Because I don't disagree. Monroe County is probably not a bad idea. Maybe portions of Trempealeau County, not a bad idea as well too. So Vernon County, so that might not be a bad idea to take a look at.
And on the other flip of the coin, at some point, it's just kind of too far.
Correct. Yep.
Get an officer and they're gone for a day and a half, and
Mhm.
that's a lot of personnel and resource expended for something that's kind of not part of our footprint.
Right. Yep. No, I would agree. Because there was some discussion, there would be a cost with the hourly rate associated with whoever the individual would be that would be driving the vehicle, of course. So those are things that were taken into consideration as well.
So do you want an approval or do we want to send this back?
If you'd like to see some changes to it, my suggestion would be is send it back. We'll take a look at it again and then come back. Were there any other suggestions that people had in regards to this?
No, I just like your comments. I think that's good. Yeah, I didn't have any. Can anybody drive the car, or is it a police officer? Is it restricted to that?
Sean, you can't drive the car.
I'm going to go on a limb and say that I don't believe, for example, the chief of police would allow a non-police officer to drive one of their police vehicles, but I don't want to speak on his behalf.
I'm still trying to get Pete to let me take number one out.
Oh, is he? Okay. Well, the same would be for Chief Letty too. I don't know if he would let just anybody drive one of his fire trucks either. So
You wouldn't want me driving it. I guarantee you that. So,
Mm.
no, that's the only suggestion. I think that's a good point that Dan has. Anything else, Mike or Diane? Did you have any thoughts on this one? Okay.
All right, so I'll motion that we send it back for review, I guess.
Yep. That works.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Mike to send item E back for review and another revision to it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Correct.
We have no further business.
I'll
No,
make,
we do. We have item 10.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Mike, second by Dan to adjourn at, what time is it? It is 7:08. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Good night.